Good evening. Welcome. I'm Susan McIntyre, the Director of Individual and Plan Giving at the DMA, and I'm honored to welcome you tonight for this very special treat. As you might remember, we had scheduled this Junior Associate Gallery crawl for May, but our friend COVID had other plans for us all, so we are delighted to bring you Gallery Crawl Goes Digital this evening. I'm going to introduce tonight's presenters in the order that they'll appear. Please feel free to submit your questions throughout the presentation and we'll answer them all at the end. You can submit them by clicking on the button that has the question mark in it, and also please indicate if your question is for a specific presenter when you write it out. Aaron Cluley is the owner of Aaron Cluley Gallery, a contemporary art gallery presenting a provocative program of artists from Texas and the East Coast. Cluley Gallery opened in 2014, igniting a creative movement in West Dallas, and recently moved their operation to the Riverbend development in the Design District. Prior to opening her gallery, Erin served as the Director of Exhibitions for the Dallas Contemporary. She is a native of Wichita Falls, mommy to almost 3-year-old boy named Lachlan, and wife to film industry executive Tierlock Hutchinson. Our second presenter, Ree Willaford, is the owner-director of Gallery Urbane. She got her start in the world of retail visual merchandise design and marketing, eventually acquiring art for the collection of a major retailer in LA. She has operated Gallery Urbane since 2000, opening it in Silver City, New Mexico, where it remained until relocating to Marfa, Texas in 2002 and Dallas in 2009. Ree has curated exhibitions for 20 years and has worked with hundreds of emerging and established contemporary artists to place their work in private and public collections, both as a gallerist and a private consultant. And finally, Adrian Zuniga is the Director of Exhibitions at Gallery Urbane. He has worked with the gallery since 2012, following the completion of his BFA in painting. In 2017, he completed an MA in Contemporary Art at Sotheby Institute of Art London, after which he returned to Dallas. Since then, Adrian has written texts for, planned and curated dozens of solo and group exhibitions, both for the gallery and outside venues.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining us, and I wish we could have all met in person, but perhaps we can do that in the future. I'll probably cover similar things with Erin since our businesses are similar. I'll try not to overlap too much to keep you intrigued. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of the gallery, and I'm going to talk about basically how we do things, and then we'll end it with Adrian Zuniga, the Director of Exhibitions at the gallery. He's going to give you an actual tour of our current show. So, you should be seeing another image soon. There we go. This is actually the very first, our home that we lived in Silver City, New Mexico. We moved from Los Angeles to get away from it all, my husband and I. And literally we were surrounded by 3 million acres of national forest. We really had no intentions of opening a gallery. We had just sold an organic coffee shop and juice bar that we had opened in Florida. And we were just taking a break with our child. Anyways, my husband had just finished a body of work and we were out of money, and we decided to have a party, and we emptied both rooms in the front of the house. We hung, this is in 1999. We hung all the art, we smoked salmon, we served lamb, we had cigars, whiskey, scotch, you name it. We almost emptied our bank account for this party. And thankfully, we sold almost every piece that night and were able to replenish our bank account. From that, a local artist, Michael Berman, who is a Guggenheim Fellow, he's in the Met, Amon Carter, and he approached us and said, if you ever opened a gallery, I would show with you. And I never thought of it. So there was an art walk happening in the town, and we decided again to empty both rooms of the house. The furniture was stacked to the ceiling in the kitchen and the backyard. And we had another opening, and about 2 months later we opened, and we actually had a website in 1999, which a lot of people did not. So I've been collecting emails for a really long time, and I actually have people that still collect from us from 1999. And some of them, their emails haven't changed, which is kind of crazy. We were growing out of the town. Our daughter was growing out of the town, and my husband again had a new body of work, public restroom walls, and a client from San Francisco suggested we go to Marfa. And we hadn't been to Marfa yet. And I thought, well, let's go check it out. So we went to Marfa. We were sitting there in the coffee shop, Marfa Book Company, the original one, and we saw a sign that said building for rent. We called the owners and asked them if they would rent it to us for Shinati Open House Weekend, which they said yes. And everyone was telling us we were crazy to pay $500 for Open House Weekend. And back then you could find an empty building in Marfa, and no one was doing pop-ups there. So we literally drove home 2 weeks later, drove back with our daughter, and within 12 hours opened the gallery, and people were coming in. We were across from a Hotel El Paisano, if you're familiar with Marfa. People were coming in asking us how long the gallery had been there, and we were laughing because we said literally 12 hours. And we sold work. It was great. And we actually rented the building for 2 years until we finally decided to buy a building in Marfa, which at that time, Ballroom Marfa had just opened, and they were bringing in, like, their first show was Polly Apfelbaum and Murakami. They flew in Stereo Total from Berlin, and excuse me, but I'm trying to get my next image to show up. I hope we don't pass it. And so it was just a great, there it is. Everyone was buying buildings and paying cash, and we couldn't compete with those people. So this was our third building, and luckily it looked horrible and nobody wanted to mess with it. So we were able to buy it because we had missed out on 2 others. But it was such a vibrant time, and everybody was just clamoring and going crazy. And it was before Instagram, so nobody really knew what was going on unless you read about it in the New York Times or Condé Nast or one of the magazines or newspapers. So we renovated the building. That's actually a koi pond that was in the front, which I was really proud of. We sold the building about 4 years ago, but we always have had a presence there. We were down the street next door to Ballroom for a while, and then we were rotating art in the Thunderbird Lounge. We just stopped showing work there last year. Gallery Urbane, that building is now a gallery. It's another gallery, but it looks the same, which is great. But the koi pond is now a planter with agaves. Oh, I think my earrings are bouncing on the mic, so I apologize. I'll take them out. This is a show from our Marfa gallery. I just wanted to show you. The image on the left is Michael Berman's 480 plates. They're silver gelatin prints, and they're images from Arizona, Texas, New Mexico. He's published 5 books and has had major museums shows, and is, like I said earlier, is in the Met, Amon Carter, in most major museums. The other image with the brightly colored architectural paintings is Gail Peter Borden. He was actually a Shinati artist in resident in 2004, and we bought our first piece from him and asked him if he would show with us when we finished our building, and he agreed. So he's still with us today. He teaches at the University of Houston, head of the architecture program. He's published 3 books and is one of our top collected artists in the gallery. The center artist is Kate Carr, who sadly is no longer with us. She is a young female artist who's she was phenomenal, but she got cancer and died very young. So, but I was honored to have represented her. Just see if we can click over. So it's nice to see that, like Aaron, and I like finding artists that nobody knows about, maybe somebody knows about. But for me, it's the hunt and finding something new. Maybe not everyone's talking about it, but that's okay. Just so I'm showing you now the building in Dallas. jumped ahead a little bit, but I figured I would do that. Um, Basically, the recession hit in Marfa in 2008. Our daughter was going into middle school, and we knew that she needed a better education. And I was watching the different art markets around Texas. Since we knew we were keeping the Marfa building, we wanted to make sure we were close. And watching the market, I knew that Dallas was the right place for a new gallery because in 2009, there wasn't a lot of as many contemporary art galleries as there is now. So I knew it was a good place for a new beginning. So we packed up again, which is what we do. And we couldn't afford anything on Dragon Street. Everywhere everyone was telling us to go, we couldn't afford. And the realtor said, I've got this building. It's not on Dragon Street. And the Trinity Trail was still dirt. He said, there's a trail that's coming in. And I mean, they helped us renovate it. They were great. And without them, we would not own the building today. So we're very happy that we were able to buy the building last year. And we're in the design district. It's off of Wycliffe, which runs along the backside of Hotel Anatole, if you're not familiar. And I've timed it. We're just 3 minutes from Erin. So you can walk there or you can drive there. I timed it because we're friends and I like her. And I'm glad she's close to me now. I'm gonna see if this will click again. I apologize. So we went from 2 artists to representing 26 artists. The installation you're seeing is actually my husband's installation he repurposes vinyl billboards. So that's all cut, sewn, quilted. It's probably 30 individual pieces that he creates different installations with, sometimes large, sometimes small. This piece actually has a home, but we can't disclose it yet, but we will soon. We represent artists from all over the world, really. We have 2 solo shows every 5 weeks because in our gallery, we have 2 front rooms and a showroom. So we can do 2 exhibits, and also you can always see everybody in the showroom. So it's a great place to sit down, view art, and just learn about the gallery. Jason recently showed at Spring Art Fair a version of this piece, but it was installed completely differently. And that's what's great about this work is that he can adapt to any space. And it can be a square, it can be organic. So it's proved to be a great medium for him. For some reason, my images aren't scrolling. So again, we too take part in art fairs. We decided that our artists, because Marfa being a tourist-based business, that you had a captive art audience. It was like every weekend was, you had people from all over the world and they were interested in art. So in some ways I didn't have to work that hard, but I mean, I did, but looking back, I have to work a lot harder in Dallas, and I had to build my new business model. So, we decided that we would do art fairs around the country so that our artists could get more exposure. And it proved to be great. And as Erin said, it's super expensive. It's a lot of hard work. There's a lot of fun and good food that goes with it, but it's definitely worth it for the artists and for the gallery to get more exposure. We represent a broad range of artists from emerging to mid-career. My artists are from all over the United States. I have always prided myself in finding new young artists that, like I said, that haven't been written about and no one's even talking about. If I like it, great. And if we work together well, I know there's a lot more to it, and there is, but the first has to be that I like the work. And then hopefully we get along, because the art business is a family. It's like you have 26 children or cousins and aunts and uncles, however you want to, take it. But so when you break up with one, which happens, artists move on, galleries move on. Every time I moved, I left artists. They left me we changed, we evolved. And I think, in Dallas, we especially had to grow up and change. And it was good for me. Dallas was challenging and it made me work harder. So I've enjoyed it. But I also like to be able to have artists for all collectors, whether you're emerging or you're established. So my price ranges vary from 500 to 50,000 and up. The artist on the left, Donald Martini, he's standing in front of the commission he did for One World Trade Center in 2015. And when we first exhibited him in 2013, we sold a couple works, but it was, kind of slow going. And after the commission in Boardwalk Trade Center, he's gone on with museum shows all over the world. He's in collections, both public, private, and it's really hard to get a hold of his work. I mean, we're literally waiting for one piece right now because we don't have anything. So, and then you have Bee's work on the right. She's a young painter. Hasn't finished her MFA program, but I think she's really a promising painter, and I just love her little intimate works. So, and like everyone, in 2018, so it's even before COVID, we started our e-commerce section to encourage accessibility and transparency for the trends in collecting. So you can go to our website, you can shop by category, price point, by artist. And I felt it was important, especially we're on a lot of other sites like Artsy and First Dibs, and those all cost monthly fees. They take commissions, which is fine because they really do bring you clients from all over the world that I wouldn't have otherwise. I place things in Switzerland because of First Dibs, major pieces. So it is important. You're giving a little, you're getting a little, or a lot in some cases. So the storefront has been more successful lately due to the people having stay-at-home orders. More and more people are shopping for art online. Art's being picked up curbside. Some people make appointments to come in, but it's working, and I'm glad though that we had the commerce site up already and we didn't have to work as hard to prepare for the online viewing rooms. And I'm hoping that the image changes soon, but there we go. And here's where you can see where you can browse. We always do a gift edit from November, December, so that'll be a section that'll pop up then. We always have a Works Under 2000, and then as you can see, just broken down by medium. So it's very user-friendly, so that it has worked out pretty well for us. With the stay-at-home orders, all of our shows had to be postponed or canceled. The live shows anyway. Benjamin Terry that you see in the picture here is a local artist. He's one of our top collected artists as well. Was due after his residency at 100 West Corsicana. He was supposed to have a solo show in the gallery featuring that work, and then stay-at-home orders hit, and we had to scramble in March, and we had our first online show, and thankfully we sold most of the show within about a week. So his work is approachable in price point. It's also very good, very strong work. And transitioning to online exhibitions, what we're doing now is we've got behind the scenes looks, studio shots, works in progress, sketchbooks. We've also started with short videos on the website and also on our YouTube page. That way, since we're not able to meet the artists in person, you can at least feel a connection with them, learn a little bit more about the artwork. And I think it gives a little bit more comfort acquiring art when you've been able to have a bit of a connection with the artist. And I'm hoping, okay. And Josef Sato out of Hungary was our second online exhibition. And he too, I've never even physically had the work until recently, the summer show, physically in person, and we sold almost half the show, or more than half the show. So of his online exhibition. So that, I mean, for an artist that's never even exhibited here from another country, that was just phenomenal. But he is an amazing painter. When you have a time, come to the gallery or go to the website and check out his work. And you can see his video interview as well. So I'm gonna close. I hope you've enjoyed this. I didn't, no kidding. I just get a little nervous, but I appreciate you bearing with me. I'm gonna hand things off to Adrian Zuniga, who is my saving grace, and he's just an amazing person. So thank you and have a good night.
Hi, everyone. My name is Adrian. So I'm going to give us a look at our current group exhibition. It's called Summer Collective. It'll be a video that plays, and it'll be kind of a tour of the exhibition. And then I'll also give just some kind of quick, brief information on 4 of the artists that I've selected. This is our first show that's up. It's both, you can do it online and physically by appointment here in the gallery. And it's our first new show that's been up since February. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide and the video will play. So with the current health crisis and our late spring shows being shifted around, we decided that it would be kind of reliable to pull together new work from our stable of artists and hang the entire gallery with these works. So we've actually done this before, and it always presents a good opportunity to get a feel for the gallery as a whole and the variety of the work that our artists make. Because of this, we found that it serves as a good time to meet with new clients, consultants, and designers, which of course is a bit tricky at the moment, but it's possible and it's been done lately, so we can do it safely. Summer Collective has work by 24 artists, and over 50 works of art. I'm accustomed to physically working with 2 artists at a time and coordinating their shows, so I forgot how much of an undertaking it would be to work with so many different artists and coordinate work coming from all around the country. The health situation also made it kind of difficult to plan ahead as much as we normally do, requiring me to kind of receive all of the work before being able to curate each space. So it can be, that was a little unsettling because we're used to having kind of a good idea of how the shows will be laid out way beforehand. But in the end, it's been nice to have so much new work on the walls. And now I think I'm going to talk about 4 of the artists that I've selected. The first one coming up just shortly is going to be Jessica Drank. So let's go ahead and pause this here. So Jessica Drank is an artist who was scheduled to have her solo show with us in April, around the time of the Dallas Art Fair. Like Aaron said, we like to have kind of a more, a larger show, a little bit more installation oriented, a little bit more ambitious. So this was planned for April, but of course, that did not end up happening, and it was going to be her first show since 2017, and we were really looking forward to it. But now we have postponed it to our fall opening show. It's going to happen at the end of August. But for Summer Collective, we've decided to include 2 new Never Before Seen pieces that kind of serve as a precursor to what's to come. The first piece on the left is from a series called Cerebral Mapping, which is a series of sprawling wall-based installations that are made from book spines. So we can let the video continue. Across all of Jessica's work, she's interested in working with man-made materials and transforming them into objects that reference the natural world, be it biologic or geologic. Cerebral mapping is made by cutting thin strips of whole books with their spines included and saturating the resulting strands in glue and water, and that hardens them. Those hardened pieces are joined together using wax, and then those larger segments become components of these large sprawling installations. Like this one, for instance, is made of about 10 sections, and it's the largest that we've shown. For Jessica, these pieces become a sort of visual for all of the information one might consume in their lifetime, and kind of even taken this neurological branching shape. The piece here on the right is a brand new series that's being developed for the show, and it's called Aggregates. And it's another way that she sees kind of potential and really commonplace or almost mundane materials. In this series, she's using collected junk mail and cardboard. So all of these pieces are layered and glued together as they get compressed and rigid. And once that's set, she uses a variety of sanding and carving tools to get this organic shape that kind of resembles the rock, kind of tectonic layers. In person, it's nice to see that there's like different spots of color, especially as most of her work appears to be fairly monochromatic. And the series will be expanded for her show. Let's go ahead and pause here as well. The next artist that I'm going to talk about, as you see, is Jason Willaford. I mentioned that the work in this summer collective is all new, but this piece that we're seeing here is the one exception to that. This is a piece titled Vacant, and it's from 2012. So, 8 years ago, and it's actually right around the time that I started working with Jason. I can actually remember like him working in the studio. He had a studio space adjacent to the gallery, so I was often seeing him work. So let's go ahead and continue. Jason is now recognized for working with vinyl billboards, which this piece is constructed from, but this was one of the first pieces that he made with that material. And this comes after years and years of working as an encaustic painter in Marfa. So these earlier vinyl works were often a response to the printed matter that were on the original billboard. And this one was a billboard for a fundraiser, the governor's mansion, that had been tagged in spray paint that you can see. And it was tagged Vacant, which is incorporated into the piece there. Jason cut each of those diamond patterns by hand and uses batting to sew the material like a quilt. But we wanted to use this piece to kind of show how much his process has evolved up until this brand new piece here, which is from this year, which you'll see now. You'll see his work has transformed a lot. Still working with the same vinyl material, but the work has gotten a lot more sculptural. His materials like spray paint and metallic paint markers, he really changes how you read the material. We often get that it looks like metal, or people even reference the sculpture of John Chamberlain, but these are actually really lightweight. That are displayed together, which is common in his newest work, where kind of smaller units will be joined together to create larger installations, like you saw in one of the images in Ree's slides. We can pause here as well. The next artist I'll briefly chat about is Stephen D'Onofrio. The multi-canvas panel on the right is by him. Stephen's a really good example of, like Ree mentioned, of the joy in finding a really young artist who we're just interested in, and they may not be known anywhere. Steve was still doing his MFA at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago when he was in a group exhibition with us, and then he went on to have his first solo show with us. This was back in like 2017, and since then he's gone on to have sold out art fair presentations, and we've placed him in really big public collections and numerous private. He's my age, and he's a really young painter and is really promising and continues to evolve. So let's play the video and I'll continue with what he's got here. So his paintings that we have in our show now are from his pattern series. And this multi-panel piece is called Cutting Room Floor. Steve is interested in mass commodified art, and in the past art, he's done a deep dive on still life paintings, where he distills popular still life imagery found in mass-produced art objects, like something you might find at IKEA or World Market. In these pattern paintings, he's taken many of those same elements and turned them into a barrage of visual textures. So the subject matter of this painting is actually leftover imagery that was designed for still life paintings, but they never quite made the cut. So you'll see the different flowers and animal and camo prints all together to make that piece. But Stephen goes to great lengths to make his pieces appear to be mass produced, but they're all done by hand. So he designs his compositions digitally, but does special treatment on his raw. It's as kind of fast and graphic, when the reality of it is something that's a very tedious process. And that's last piece here is a sunflower pattern painting that's up in the showroom. A really, really great painting. So we'll pause here as well. The last artist that I want to share briefly about is Joseph Chateau, who he's one of the newest artists to the gallery. Ree's already mentioned him. He's based in Budapest. Joseph was scheduled to have his first solo show with us, and actually his first solo show in the US, and that was going to happen in May. And that, of course, has been postponed to the end of the year, and he was our second online show, which did really well. And the pieces that we have up in the summer show, or you can actually find online on his online show. But you can also visit them in person here now. So let's go ahead and play the remainder of the video. So these pieces are all based on what he's developed, a sort of cast of characters that are often repeated. And so you'll find things like teardrops and these like strange biomorphic plants and skull figures. So these characters are joined together in larger compositions on canvas that you see. They're painted in a really distinct color palette and intriguing texture that's kind of his signature. And a lot of them they kind of are this line between figurative, still life paintings, and many have kind of these forms that are really distorted, but they have this playful quality to them. So he sees each composition as a kind of ritual that is being played out, but he leaves these scenes or rituals open for interpretation, so viewers can kind of make their own sense of this universe that he's created. But yeah, so you can see his exhibition called The Right Rituals, also on our website at galleryurbane.com. And I hope that maybe you'll come and make an appointment and to see the show in person. But that's it for me.
Thank you so much, Adrian, Ree, and Aaron. I feel like we saw more than we would have seen if we were physically in the space, although it would have been nice to clink glasses with all of you. This is so wonderful. I have a couple of quick questions that I think we can address very quickly, and then there's some questions that I want to ask all of you, but there are a couple of questions. Yes, both online viewing rooms are available right now. GalleryUrbane.com and AaronClewley.com. Also, they are open for appointment to come and see something if you want to see something in person. And both galleries accept payment plans and work with buyers to work out what works best for them. So those were a couple of questions we got about kind of general housekeeping. But I also love, so this is for both of you. We'll have Ree answer first. If you could select a dream artist to show in your gallery, who would it be, and what kind of exhibition? Or have you already shown your dream artist? Ree, I think you might be muted.
Okay. Sorry, I'm like, my favorite, my dream would be Anselm Kiefer. Did you get that?
I did. Anselm
Okay.
Kiefer, and remind us all what his medium is.
He's a painter. There's mixed mediums. There's hay and dirt and oil and there's a very big painting pretty much always up at the another museum in Fort Worth. But no, he would be my dream. Egon Schiele would be a dream. I mean, he's one of the first artists I fell in love with because I'm self-taught. I just have worked my way and read. And so when I went to Europe young and traveled for 6 months and saw both those artists' shows and works, I read all the books, and they're just like two of my dream artists, and just, yeah, could have dinner with them, anything, coffee.
Thank you. And Erin?
So I'll tell this little story. So I work with Nick Nikosha now, and I had known his work, for really since I moved back to Dallas and or back to Texas. I hadn't lived in Dallas before, but I had started to become familiar with his work, and it was like 3 years ago, I guess, and my New Year's resolution was like, okay, I'm going to be more, like assertive or something. It was, and so Nick came into the gallery, and I had never met him before, and he had just moved back from Santa Fe, and I knew that he didn't have a gallery here in Dallas. And so we were chatting, and if you've met Nick, he's just the nicest, most like personable, easy to talk to. So we talked for a long time in the gallery, and he had told me that someone had, suggested to start kind of visiting these galleries that had opened since he had left Dallas and moved to Santa Fe like 12 years prior. And so, in that moment, I was just like, I'm going to see if I can visit his studio. So I asked, I said, would you have me over to your studio? He's like, yeah, absolutely. And that, is not uncommon to go and visit someone's studio, even with the intentions of just visiting with them or getting to know them. And so, but before I went, I said, you know what? I told myself, I was like, I'm going to put it on the table with him and say, that I wanted to work with him and just see where it goes. And sure enough, like, he was excited to say yes and work with me. And we've just had like an amazing relationship since. And so he is a dream artist that I'm already working with. So.
Another quick question for you, Erin. In reference to when you worked with museums for acquisitions, are you approaching them or are they approaching you?
So I think this kind of goes back to, really the relationships that, people like me and Ree and Adrian all work so hard to just maintain. We're out there nurturing these relationships with collectors and curators, and so I think it's a very organic thing. I think it happens in a lot of different ways. I think with the few that have happened for us this last year, with Francisco's, it was kind of, we had this great relationship with Catherine. I had sort of gotten some intel from, someone involved with the museum that said, like, go big or go home. I mean, why just sort of propose a painting? Why not propose the chapel, since it's such a beloved piece? And so so we did sort of pitch it, and then Catherine was able to kind of take it from there. With Nick, it was the same thing. It was just, we had been talking with Jed Morse over at the Nasher for a while about Nick's sculpture. So I think it's kind of, it's different in every situation, but I think that it's maintaining those relationships with these people in the community that's so important. And I hope, what I always hope is that's the value that we as the galleries bring to the table for our artists is, this is what we're bringing to them, the value in this whole relationship. So.
Wonderful, thank you. Ree or Adrian, do y'all have anything to add to that? Working with institutions?
I think Erin hit it on the, sometimes it's a combination of right time, right place. It's working with your clients that are working for you as a, sort of a go-between or a catalyst or an intro, and it's us just pushing and emailing and calling and doing whatever we can. But I do think it happens organically. It's not something that you can just pick up the phone and say, hey, you need to do this for me. You have to develop relationships. And I've been doing it for a really long time, and it's really hard, So I also never had tried really hard, but it's something that I've been, newly working on for, harder on, that ever before in the past, like 10 years. So.
One final question to wrap up today. What do y'all look for in emerging artists when you're trying to find someone who might be a little off the beaten path? Where are you seeking them out?
Who's going first? Oh.
Ree, why don't you go?
Oh, I was just saying who's going first. I think earlier I touched on it a little bit. Sometimes, quite frankly, like Josef's work, my husband found him on Instagram and said, you need to look at this artist. So sometimes that happens. Sometimes the artist sends you the images, but I don't usually recommend that too often. I think sometimes we do find you, sometimes the artist does find us, or there's an intro. I'm sure Adrian and I are constantly researching. We're always reading, looking. We're out there looking. We're always looking, and it never hurts to try. I would say never, not to get your feelings hurt if it doesn't work out, that there's always a venue or a gallery for you somewhere. It's never personal. It's business. And since I'm married to an artist, I know the frustration directly. And I think that's why I love finding emerging young artists. And I have a lot of them in the gallery and always will and always have. But I think that because it hurts and the artists work so hard and no one wants to hurt anyone's feelings. So, it's tough. It's tough as a gallerist because you have to be tough and you have to stick to your mission and you have to stick to what the direction and such, and you can't have too many artists looking the same, etc. So it happens, I think, again, organically often. I mean, sometimes when you're searching an artist that's already has a great background, that's a different story, but and that's a different process because it's just different. But I would just say to emerging artists, if this is from an emerging artist, to just keep doing what they're doing and post on social media. Get out there and do whatever you can. So.
Thank you, Erin.
Yeah, I think I agree with everything that Ree said. And then I think another thing that I have always kind of believed in and tried to tap into is I look to my artists that I already have relationships, and I like to hear who they're looking at. It's a nice way to they have their finger on the pulse of like something different than I might. And so I'm always asking like my artists, who are you looking at? So.
Very nice. Thank you. Well, thank you again, Erin, Ree, and Adrian, for your time and expertise tonight. If any of our members wake up with a birdie question from this presentation, send your question to Caroline Irvin, and she'll make sure and get an answer for you. I want to thank all of our junior associates for joining us tonight and for their support of the DMA. It is your membership that makes it possible for the museum to share art with all in our community. Speaking of art in the community, if you haven't seen the announcement this week, we will be live streaming Arthur Jafa's Love is the Message is Death, which is part of the DMA's permanent collection, for 48 hours starting tomorrow, Friday, June 26th at 1 p.m. on our website. I hope that you'll take a moment during your weekend to experience this amazing short film that was highly lauded when it was released in 2016 and is even more resonant today. I wish all of you a wonderful evening till we meet again.